There are child psychologists, pediatricians, and loads of folks with a bunch of letters behind their names saying that the third grade year is a milestone year in terms of childhood development. But then these same professionals will go on to give you these unhelpful generalizations like, keep open lines of communication between you and your child. Give your child the space to make some of their own decisions and then learn from their mistakes without fear or shame. Listen more to your child and be interested in what they have to say. And yes, that's nice information to hear. But as a parent of an actual 8-year-old, it doesn't help me. I mean, have you actually listened to them talk about like Pokemon for 20 minutes? Heck, I'm not a good storyteller, but like theirs doesn't even have a plot. 8 years old is a time when we as parents could really take the lead and start preparing them for puberty and that in-between world of childhood and adulthood, but we don't. Why? Why don't we start talking about puberty at 8 years old or explaining what is sex? Why do we as parents actively avoid these conversations at 8 and 9 years old? So here's what I wanted to do. I wanted to take what all these parenting experts were saying about helping 8-year-olds successfully manage this shift between childhood and the tween years and actually do something to help them focus on preparing for this critical developmental period. And so I thought about it. My expertise is in public health, specifically sex education. And do you know what is the hardest age to teach sex ed to? Are you thinking high schoolers? It's not. In my experience, they are actively thinking about having sex. So this information is very interesting to them. So they pay attention in class. And it's not 8-year-olds. 8-year-olds are keenly interested to learn about their bodies and how it's going to change because they look up to teenagers and adults and they want to be like them. So they definitely pay attention in class. But in that classroom, I was only really allowed to talk about basic puberty changes and body safety. I was never allowed to mention the word sex. And here's where I'm going to ask if you have ever found any one of my videos to be helpful or have used my content to initiate a talk with your kid. Go on and hit that like button and let me know that. I would love to see this video get over 100 likes. It's middle school. Middle schoolers has got to be the most challenging because they are actively going through puberty and they are just all over the place. They have heard a lot of stuff and nobody is actually taking the time to inform them what is true and what is a myth. They are giggling at the number 69 and don't you dare ask them if that question was a hard one. You'll lose control of the class for a solid minute. So let's go back to that original question. Why don't we as parents start talking about puberty or explaining what is sex at 8 years old? Why do we avoid these conversations at this age? My informed answer to this question is that I believe we as parents, as moms and dads, we think that we're doing a good job as a parent if we are giving our kids the space to just be a kid and not having them worry about all the things that come from more complicated or complex relationships. And in our adult mind, we're thinking complicated or complex relationships are sexual relationships. But that's not what's going on in the mind of an 8-year-old. At 8 years old, they're already beginning to experience complex feelings and emotions, and they are struggling with how to express those frustrations and confusion. And we are doing them a disservice by still assuming they are living in a one or the other world, right? Like it's good or it's bad, it's black or it's white, it's happy or it's sad, when really they're getting their first taste of the complex world that they live in. And so when my kid turned 8 years old, I knew I wanted to start the puberty talks and reinforce the sex talk that we've already had a couple times. And yes, I have explained what is sex, including vaginal, anal, and oral, to my 8-year-old a couple of times. And you know what? They're fine. They basically said that is gross. And I knew they were going to say that because I'm good at my job. Now, I have been using books to initiate conversations since she was about 3 years old. And books are fantastic as a way to introduce topics and normalize talking about bodies and different types of families and consent and numerous other topics. But I've got an 8-year-old now, and I didn't want to start the puberty talks just using another book. I wanted it to be fun. I wanted it to be something she looked forward to. And so I thought about what she's interested in right now. And she loves playing card games and board games, basically any game, because she loves the challenge of the game and succeeding in it. And then, it's playing, so it's fun. And so saying, let's take a look at this book together and we can talk about it, just doesn't quite cut it anymore. And so the answer was simple. I'm going to gamify the puberty talks. I created 30 cards that had a puberty-related question on it. And of course, I created 30 cards with the answer to that question. And then I put them all in this jar and I introduced the game. And so I told her, in this jar are 30 questions that are related to growing up, bodies, sex, and emotions. And I want to do a 30-day challenge with you. The challenge is, can we get through all 30 of these questions before the end of the month? But here's the catch. We're only allowed to do 1 or 2 questions at most per day. Do you think we can do it? Do you think we can answer all 30 of these questions before the end of the month? Because if we do, you're going to get a yes day over spring break. So I chose to introduce this game as a 30-day challenge. And she bought in because a yes day is like the most amazing day ever to an 8-year-old. And so we started Puberty Topics from a jar, and it wasn't like amazing or anything at first. She just picked a card, we answered the question, we talked about it, and then we read what was on the answer card. It happened like that the next day and the day after that. But then there was a really busy day. We were out of our normal routine, and so the day just like flew by. And that evening she came running to me and said, "Mom, we forgot to do our puberty talk today. I'll go get the jar." And that was the moment I was like, yes, this is working. She loves the game. She wants to talk about puberty. This is actually fun for her. And it's quite easy for me. And ever since that day, I stopped worrying about the activity and wondering, is it going well? Does she like it? Because it was. She was excited to talk to me, interested in the topics, asking follow-up questions, all because I made it a game. I made talking about puberty fun. And it's not just me. Other moms who have purchased Puberty Topics in a jar said the same thing. Here's a lovely message I received from a wonderful mom who follows me on TikTok who said, "Just bought the puberty questions and started them with my kid who wants to talk about all of them tonight." That is so wonderful. That is the beauty of engaging in the talks in a fun and different way. Another mom on Instagram said this: "The first couple of days she was hesitant. Now she grabs them on her own and lately even grabs 2 each day. Winning." If you are feeling hesitant or anxious about starting the puberty talk, let me help you. Check out the link that is in the comments and the description for the Puberty Topics in a Jar digital download. It is really so easy and simplified. And the secret here is that it's actually an activity that does what all those parenting experts tell you to do. In a recent article on parents.com about why 3rd grade is such a hard year for the kids and the parents, a parenting expert said to do these 5 things. Keep the lines of communication open between you and your child. I mean, what better way to do that than to have a daily talk about what most people would consider to be a difficult topic? Use positive reinforcement. Praising your kid for their knowledge about topics that are rarely taught in school at this age is definitely going to make your kid feel encouraged to learn, and most importantly, want to learn from you. Number 3, set clear expectations and boundaries. Routines are loved by kids, so a 30-day challenge easily checks that box. Balance independence and staying involved. There are questions in Puberty Topics in a Jar that give your kid the chance to identify physical, social, and emotional changes that they might actually be experiencing now or soon to be experiencing. It's critical thinking in a safe environment. And number 5, encourage empathy. Because Puberty Topics in a Jar discusses the changes that happen to everybody, it gives you the space to encourage empathy for others as they go through puberty as well. Now, I created Puberty Topics in a Jar and started doing this activity before this parents.com article came out. And I knew I had created something special because my kid was excited and engaged in these conversations with me and wanted to do them every day. And I would say that this activity just blew down the walls between us, because if she was hesitant to ask me a question before, that's no longer the case. I might have to create round 2 of Puberty Topics in a Jar because I think she's going to be a little sad when it's all over. And if you made it to this point in the video and you're wondering what are the topics that are in the jar and up to what age do I recommend this activity for, click on the link in the description and the comments and you will find the answers to those questions on my website.